Hello students, welcome back. We are discussing the standard 12 chapter and here we are going to talk about the pollination is done. We have also discussed the pollen pistil interaction. Yes, that is also done. Now what next? Next we'll be talking about the fertilization process. How the fertilization in plant takes place, what is it specially called as, and how the remaining process, that is post-fertilization, even starts. See, already we have told that in case of sexual reproduction in flowering plants, during that time, what happens? A plant follows some event, okay? And those events are very important in the life of a plant. What exactly happens? There are pre-fertilization event, then comes fertilization, and then the post-fertilization events. Now, during pre-fertilization events, the formation of the gamete and gamete transfers takes place. On that, we have discussed about microgenesis, microsporogenesis, megasporogenesis. We also discussed that how the pollen, which is produced in one flower, can be transferred to the another flower. That is called as pollination. We discussed about types of pollination, different type of flowers which get pollinated by different agent like wind, water, different type of biotic agent. We discussed that also. We also came to know that how a pollen and pistil interact with each other. Now, see, once the pollen and pistil interaction is done, we also know that after pollen pistil interaction, the next events are going to start. That is, once the pistil is accepting the pollen, once the pistil or the stigma is accepting the pollen, then only the fertilization event can start. And once the fertilization events are done, then the post-fertilization events will start, right? So now when we talk about the fertilization events in plant, we have to speak about one very, very important phenomenon which is unique in case of plants, that is double fertilization and triple fusion. What it is double fertilization and triple fusion. Now here as you see, there is fertilization is happening twice. That is why it is called as double fertilization. And there is one more term which is added, that is called as triple fusion. Why it is triple fusion? Why there is three fusion is happening thrice? I'll tell you that. Okay. Now, before I start with double fertilization and triple fusion, let me tell you one more thing very clear over here, that embryo sac diagram should be in your mind very clear. You should not get confused. How does an embryo sac look like? Because once you know about the structure of the embryo sac, easily you can understand the remaining steps. Okay, so are you ready for this? Let us see about, first I'll just quickly recall about the embryo sac diagram. Embryo sac is something like this, where we have a big oval cell in central cell, and it has two end. I hope you remember. This end is called as chalazal end, and the opposite end is called as micropylar end. I keep on drawing this diagram again and again whenever I teach, because this is the very basic diagram for understanding sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, near the micropylar, okay, in the chalazal part, we have three cells. Those are called as antipodal cells. What are they called as? They are called as antipodal cells. Okay. And in the center of the main embryo sac, there are two free nuclei is there. Those are called as polar nuclei. What are they called as? They are called as polar nuclei. Clear? At the base of it, that is near the micropylar end, there are two big cells. Those are called as synergids. What are they called as? They are called as synergids. And they have one more, like, something like which is peeping out in between the synergid is the egg cell. So this is the egg cell. And near the synergid, what we have some finger-like projections which is present, and that is called as filiform apparatus. What are they called as? They are called as filiform apparatus. Okay. Till here, you should know the structure very clearly. Embryo sac diagram should be very crystal clear in your mind. At any point of time, somebody asks about embryo sac, you should be able to draw this. Now, if this diagram you understand that there is a chalazal end and the micropylar end, there are synergid and filiform apparatus, there is an egg cell, there are two polar nuclei and three antipodal cells. If you understand till here very clearly, then let us understand now what is the meaning of double fertilization and triple fusion. See, when I say the word as double fertilization, what is happening here? Fertilization is happening twice. Do you remember that when the pollen tube was entering, from here, when the pollen tube was entering inside, it was releasing two male gametes. Every time we told when the pollen tube is growing, if this is the pollen and it is forming the pollen tube and it is entering to the through the micropylar, and it will be having two cells present in this. They will be having two male gametes. They have a vegetative cell and a generative cell, and the generative cell will divide now to form two male gamete. Either it will happen before it enters or forms a pollen tube, or it may happen during the formation of pollen tube. This idea also should be clear in your mind. So when the pollen is entering through the stigma, this is the stigma and this is the style. When the pollen is entering through the stigma and the style and going towards the ovary part, at that time, how many male gametes were there? Two male gametes are there, okay? So remember over here, one more thing is, how many male gametes are supposed to be released? There are two male gametes are released. What is the ploidy of the male gamete? What is the ploidy? How many chromosomes are there? They are haploid in number. So they are having n number of chromosomes. Okay? Because these male gametes would have formed by the process of meiosis, right? So now what is the meaning of double fertilization? Here the fertilization will happen two times. How it will happen? With what it will happen? Let us understand that. Okay. Let me start with the slideshow. Let me see what is written over here. The pollen tube releases two male gametes into the Synergid cell. Now, as the pollen tube is entering, it is carrying two male gametes, right? Where the pollens are released, they are released in the Synergids. Where they are released? They are released in the Synergids, okay? They are released in the Synergids. Okay, Synergids are the cells which is present at this part, okay? This is the end part. There is a Synergid present towards the micropylar end, okay? Now, one of the male gamete fuses with the egg cell to form a diploid 2N zygote, and this is called as syngamy or generative fertilization. One of the male gamete will fertilize with the egg to form a 2N number of embryo or the zygote, and this is called as syngamy. Okay, let us go to a blackboard and understand this process very clearly. Now, I'll draw the embryo sac big enough, okay? And I'll draw the Synergid cells. These are Synergid cells. This is the Filiform Apparatus. What this Filiform Apparatus function? They will guide the male gamete towards the egg. They will just push the male gamete. So, whenever the pollen tube is coming and entering through here, what it is having? It is having two male gametes present over there, right? It is having two male gametes present over there, and these are released inside the Synergids. Where it is released? It is released in the Synergid, right? Now, during this time, at the same time, once it is released, where it is supposed to go? It's supposed to go and meet the egg cells. How many male gametes was released? Two male gametes was released, right? So this is male gamete number 1. This is male gamete number 2. Fine. Two male gametes were released. Now, the first fertilization will take place with the male gamete 1 and the egg cell. So, there will be the male gamete. How many chromosome they have? What is the number of chromosome? That is N. It is going to fuse with the egg cell, the big egg cell, central egg cell. It will be fusing with this. How many chromosome is present in egg cell? N number. So what will be formed after this? If male gamete and egg combines together, they will form a zygote. What is the ploidy of the zygote? It will be 2N. This zygote is nothing but going to form the embryo. What it is going to form? It is going to form the embryo. So this process is called as syngamy. What it is called as? It is called as syngamy. This is the main fertilization. Plants' main aim to produce the embryo so that embryo develops to seed, ovule, all that next post-fertilization events will start. So this is the main process. Syn means two, gamy is fusion. So there is a two gamete fusion is happening, and this process is called as syngamy. Clear till here? Did you understand? This is the first fertilization. I'm talking about double fertilization, and this is the first fertilization that has happened. What about the second fertilization? Second fertilization is called as triple fusion. What it is called as? It is called as triple fusion. It is called as triple fusion. Triple fusion. Now, why it is called as triple fusion? Why the name triple fusion has come? Okay, there are polar nuclei. Okay, each polar nuclei is having n number of chromosomes because they are formed by the meiosis first, right? So, this is n number of chromosomes. This is also n number of chromosomes. Now, before it forms the endosperm, primary endosperm, or before it goes for the triple fusion. Okay. Triple fusion happens with this number 2 male gamete. You see the second male gamete with the polar nuclei. The fusion, triple fusion will happen with the other male gamete with the polar nuclei, and that is why it is called as triple fusion. Okay. Now, why it is required? Okay, I'll tell you about it when I'll tell you about endosperm. First, you understand what is triple fusion. In the center, there were two polar nuclei. What was it? There were two polar nuclei, right? These polar nuclei has a ploidy or chromosome number of n. Correct now? Now, just before the male gamete comes and fuses with these two polar nuclei, they will combine with each other and will form a secondary polar nuclei. So, they will form a secondary form, 2 degree. 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, right? Primary, tertiary and secondary. Primary, secondary and tertiary. So, they will form a secondary nucleus. Okay. So, secondary nucleus will be formed. Where it will be formed? In the center of the cell. Secondary nucleus will be formed. Okay. With the secondary nucleus, this N chromosome is there now. That male gamete. Another male gamete number 2. That will go and join. So, this ploidy is N. It has N number of chromosomes. This secondary nucleus is N plus N. That means it is 2N. Correct? Is it correct? This is N and this is N. Just before it gets combined with the male gamete, what it happens, these two will start and form a one single cell. These polar nuclei will fuse together and form a one cell, and that obviously the ploidy will become 2N. So this 2N will be combining with another male gamete to form the primary endosperm nucleus. What it will form? It will form primary endosperm nucleus. Endosperm nucleus. Okay. Primary endosperm nucleus. And what will be the ploidy at that time? That ploidy will become 3N. Why it will become 3N? Because already it was 2N here and N over here. So 2N plus N will become 3N. This is called as triple fusion. This is called as triple fusion. Did you understand? So what is happening? Can you see that there is a fertilization which is happening one more time? Why it is happening one more time? Because the first male gamete was fertilizing with the egg. The first male gamete has fertilized with the egg, and the second male gamete has gone and fertilized these polar nuclei. So as the fertilization process is happening twice, we call it as double fertilization. And why we call it as triple fusion? Because when the male gamete combines with the nucleus, that is when the male gamete combines with the polar nuclei, the ploidy changes to 3N, that is primary endosperm nucleus will form, and this is called as triple fusion. 3 cells are getting fused together, that is why it is called as triple fusion. I hope this is clear. Let us go back to the notes and our PPTs and let us see what exactly we are discussing. We are talking about, see now let us read this. The pollen tube releases the 2 male gametes into the synergids. The 2 male gametes has been released. The synergid will now guide the cells to go to the upper part, that is towards the egg. Okay. One of the male gamete fuses with the egg. One male gamete will go and fuse with the egg. So that is called as proper fertilization, which will lead to the formation of embryo. And they will form a diploid zygote. Correct? That is the main aim. I am telling again and again. The zygote formation is the main aim for this particular process.